That's not really true. I resisted it a lot in the beginning. I mean, taking over the store from my father wasn't exactly what I dreamt of doing when I was young. Even now, I still go back and forth all the time. But I don't know, maybe it takes a long time to figure out what you're truly searching for. Maybe you spend your whole life just to figure out a small part of it. I don't know. I think maybe I've been wasting my time just doing nothing. I don't think so. It's important to stand still sometimes. Think of it as a little rest in the long journey of your life. This is your harbor, and your boat is just dropping anchor here for a little while. And after you're well rested, you can set sail again. This is one of my favorite passages from this lovely book by Satoshi Yagisawa, Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. This is what we'll be talking about today. So hello, how are you today? Welcome back to the Blossom Review. Today we'll be talking about Satoshi Yagisawa's Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. And of course, its very, very special sequel, More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, that was released in the UK last July. These books were both translated by Eric Ozawa, a lovely, lovely translation by Eric. This is a fantastic book that is very, very special to me and holds a very special place in my heart. So I am here today to convince you to read it. Or maybe if you have already read it, I would like to start a conversation with you about how important these books actually are to the world we live in now. So a little bit about the book before we start this discussion. Days at the Morisaki Bookshop was released in Japan in 2010. It actually won the Chiyoda Literature Prize, and it was even adapted into a film that I haven't watched yet. There is no official release in Europe or America. But I'm slightly scared of watching it because I don't know, this is such a special story for me. I'm just scared they ruined it. But Days at the Morisaki Bookshop tells the story of Takako. Takako is a 25-year-old woman who lives in Tokyo. She works at a decent company and she is dating this guy until she finds out that the guy she had been dating is about to get married to someone else. So that's such a shock that Takako just becomes very, very depressed. She decides to leave her job because they actually work together. So Takako, her boyfriend, and his fiance, they all work together. And so she leaves her job and she gets really, really depressed. That's when she receives a phone call from her uncle Satoru. Her family actually owns a bookshop in Jinbocho. Maybe you've heard of Jinbocho. It's a very, very famous neighborhood in Tokyo. It's known as the Mecca for bookworms because it's a neighborhood full of secondhand bookshops. So her family has a bookshop there and Satoru, her uncle, is responsible for it. So he calls her and says, Takako, come here, spend some time with me, get to know the bookshop a little bit. Takako is not really a bookworm. She doesn't really read that much. So it's a bit of a strange mix there. A girl who's completely heartbroken ends up in the secondhand bookshop in a neighborhood filled with books and filled with people who love books. And then she needs to find herself again. If you're reading this book because you expect to find a book about the importance of reading or how reading can change your life, I think you have the wrong idea here. I think this book is about, one, I think it pays homage to the neighborhood of Jinbocho. It pays beautiful homage to the neighborhood, but also to the people who are lucky enough to just live and work there. But if you go deeper into the story, I think the main message of Days at the Morisaki Bookshop is that it's okay to stop for a while. We live in a chaotic, noisy world, a world that is always pushing us into creating, into doing, into producing, into going, into being something, being someone. But Days at the Morisaki Bookshop reminds us that it's okay to stop. It's okay to take a break. That's only human. Takako, in the middle of her pain and her sorrow, she realizes that she's tired of this noise. She's tired of the world constantly pushing her to be more, to do more, and she wants to stop. So the most important thing about Days at the Morisaki Bookshop is that the story reminds us that feeling sad is normal, that giving yourself time is only natural, that needing other people's support is nothing more, nothing less than human. There is nothing wrong with needing help, with asking for help, asking for advice. It's okay to say, look, I'm tired, I am sad, I need some time. Can you help me? Can you help me overcome this? And the thing is, the bookshop is this fantastic character in the story that provides this very supportive community to Takako, to her uncle, to her aunt. Through that support, they reconnect with themselves, with the world, and they overcome their struggles. So Days at the Morisaki Bookshop is a short, simple, but incredibly powerful story about connections and reconnections with yourself, with your loved ones, with your environment, with your friends, but also with strangers, with people that you see once every blue moon, or a person that just, you meet for a second at a bookshop and they are also looking for a book. Takako guides you through her life. She is very straightforward. This is what happened, this is how I felt, and this is how things unraveled. It's up to you to understand what she learned from that experience. So the second book follows the first one. There is a bit of a time jump in between them, 3 or 4 years if I'm not mistaken. And I feel that the second book is actually much more intense than the first one. I think it's much more emotionally charged. The dialogue is sharper. And it's just, if you cry with the first one, you sob your eyes out with the second one. Believe me. The second one is just as beautiful as the first one, if not a little bit more. Because the second book is about love. The second book is about this kind of love that is pure and endless. And not just romantic love, but platonic love as well. The second book highlights connections even more. The connection between Takako and her uncle, Takako and her aunt, between Momoko and Satoru, her uncle and aunt as well. In the first book, she also learns that it's important to communicate. It's important to open yourself to the people who love you. It's important to share your problems with them, and it's important to gather the courage to actually face these problems. She learns that in the first book, and in the second book you see how those experiences shaped this Takako, this almost 30-year-old now Takako. In the second book, instead of closing herself off, she asks for help, she opens up to others. She's the one who establishes the line of communication between characters. When in the first book it was her uncle went after her. Her uncle asked her to come to the bookshop. Her uncle would sit down with her and talk to her. But in the second book, no, it's Takako going to people and asking for their advice. It's Takako trying to establish this communication line between different people that are not able to express what they want to say. I think this is what this book does best, is this fantastic character arc that you see in Takako, how much she changes, how much she grows, and how much she evolves. It's also beautiful to see the companionship between, because it's not you don't really see that relationship that often between a niece and an uncle. It's not really the sort of thing that happens often in literature, I would say. I'm trying to think of examples. It does happen, I'm not gonna say it doesn't, but it's not that often. Sometimes you see maybe people trying to reconnect with parents or siblings, but I think it completely forgoes relationships with parents and siblings to focus on the relationship between Takako, her uncle, and her aunt. There is this loving sense of companionship and friendship between the three of them that is just fascinating. And it's beautiful to see how much they help each other, how much they grow together, and how much they love each other, how much they respect each other. I think this is very important. If you go beyond these three main characters, because I would say these three are the three main characters of the book, if you go beyond those three, you have this cast of supporting characters that are just lovely. There is no unnecessary subplot. Sometimes a character is only there to be a supporting character. They are only there to emphasize the theme of the importance of having a supportive community around you. But some characters have some subplot, and the subplot also, their subplot, for example, Tomo, her friend, her story actually reflects Takako a little bit. They are very similar, and her subplot actually helps Takako. I think it helps Takako realize the things that she's learned from her own experience, and it helps create a more solid character for Takako. Because Takako, you realize that she is this very kind, a little bit indecisive, but very kind girl who really wants to help people. The characters are very well built, and the connections between them bring change and bring growth to everybody. So if there is a plot line there, that plot line is going to help enrich these characters and the main plot. This applies to both books, guys. This is for, I feel like at the same time that the two books are very different, I feel that they are very similar. Even the structure, how the story is constructed, how the narrative structure of both books is very similar. You start very slowly, very chill, and the story gets progressively more intense and more emotionally heavy. I think the most important character in this story is actually the bookshop. So when it comes to books and to reading, they are sort of in the background of the story. She mentions a lot of Japanese authors, actually, international authors as well, but mostly Japanese. It's really nice to read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop or More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, because you get all these little suggestions and recommendations throughout. So you hear about very important Japanese writers, Dazai, Akutagawa, for example. It's really, really nice to see all these. You might recognize some of these authors if you are a Japanese literature fan, or if you like Bungo Stray Dogs. It does happen. But the books themselves, they are part of the background. The bookshop is a character right here in the foreground. The bookshop is this door through a different universe, not because of reading, but it's to Takako, to Momoko, and to Satoru. The bookshop is the guardian of their memories, of their lives, the things that happen inside the bookshop, the memories that they create inside the bookshop. The bookshop is this fantastic guardian of their life. But especially to Takako, the bookshop is a door to a different self. Through the bookshop, she reconnects with herself, and she learns about herself in a way that she had never learned before. I think it's very important to highlight that even though the book does not try to sell this idea that, oh my God, reading changes your life, reading in the book is both a consolation and a teacher. As in, to Takako, reading shows her that she can open up to people. Reading teaches her how to communicate and how to convey her ideas, but also how to understand others better. There is actually this lovely passage in the second book. In the first book, Takako learns this, how important it is to open up through reading. And then in the second book, after she goes through a little bit of a crisis, she goes to the people that she loves, asks for advice, and they say, you need to open up, you need to tell him that. She says, and I think it's very, very nice, this is one of my favorite passages from the second book as well. I was happy he cared about me and the people who are important to me. I kind of felt like I was being rewarded for finding the courage to confide in him what I was feeling. Sharing your thoughts with someone seems so simple, but at times it can be surprisingly difficult, even more so when it's someone you care so much for. That's what I thought about as I walked next to him. But if you can find the courage to do it, it will bring you closer together. So this is Takako in the second book. And let me tell you, this is a completely different person from the first book, the one that just locked herself in a room and said she wouldn't leave. In the translator's notes for this book, actually, Eri Kozawa mentions, for Takako, reading becomes a way to open herself up to the world, but for her friend Tomoko, literature is a consolation and at times a retreat from the world. And well, I think that's enough. He can say it better than I can. And it's true. I learned a lot from this book. I am this sort of person that I feel like I always need to be doing something. I always need to be creating and doing things. And even when I'm sad and tired, I just say, just keep on going. There's no time. There's no time to stop and breathe. And the first book was a really good reminder that I'm human and humans need a break, and it's okay to reassess your situation and maybe find a new path forward. Well, in the second book, I think even Yagisawa's prose actually improved from the first to the second book. So you can actually see evolution not only in the characters, but you can see evolution in the writer himself. The second book reminded me of how important and how magical it is to have people who love and support you around you. And that's okay to rely on them. But it also reminded me of how fascinating love is. Romantic love, filial love, platonic love. How love takes different shapes and forms throughout life, and how kind and pure and selfless love actually is. It made me think about the relationships that I have with my family, with my loved ones, and how love shows itself in my life. It makes you appreciate the people around you. So I think More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop is also about loss and about grief and about how love is still an integral part of grief. It's a book that really, really moved me. I cried non-stop. I think the last 50 pages, I cried non-stop for the last 50 pages. But it was such a satisfying read. And it's a book that I can see myself rereading in the future. If you're looking for a book that is full of drama, is super intense, lots of intense plot points, I don't think this is the right book for you. If you're looking for a book that in a very sweet, very loving way discusses what it's like to be human and what it's like to try to connect to others, and how our love towards others and their love towards us, how it influences who we are and what we do. I think Days at the Morisaki Bookshop and then More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop is a perfect book for you. Oh well, try to avoid spoilers as much as I could. Actually, I wrote a complete review on Days at the Morisaki Bookshop earlier this year. Is on the Blossom Review. So if you check theblossomreview.com, you will surely find it there. So yesterday we had a brand new post on Japanese dramas that you should watch this autumn. Check it out because it's a very special post to me. I mentioned a lot of my favorite shows. And Friday, tomorrow, we will release a new post on Japanese literature. So please look forward to that. And well, I think this is my discussion on Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. I hope it wasn't too confusing or too messy. Probably was. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Share in the comments if you have read the book, if you would like to read it in the future. And well, what do you think about it? What do you think about the video? I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you like and subscribe. And I really hope you have a fantastic day today and a wonderful weekend ahead. I'll see you next Thursday. Thank you. Bye.